at the same time. So my name is Eddie. This is my fourth year we're doing this. So basically I graduated from GMSP in 2017 and I finished my law certificate at Université de Montréal last year. And for your exam, there will be 60 multiple choice questions and you have 2 essays. So we are having tonight from 6 to 10 a final mock exam session. And tomorrow we're having a final consultation session. Now, the first question asked was, Eddie, what is a patrimony? So patrimony, according to Article 2 of the Civil Code of Quebec, is basically this abstract concept of assets and liabilities that belong to its owner. So in this case, if you are the natural person and you have assets and liabilities, you have your own patrimony. The same thing can be said for corporations. Corporations are distinct personalities. So they have their own distinct, which means separate, patrimonies. Once again, feel free to write your questions in the live chat on YouTube right there. So for those who are just joining, this is the format of your Okay, I have somebody else who just submitted a question. The question is, can you explain to me the People versus Wise case and why it's important for the exam? So People versus Wise is the only case you have for Chapter 6. And Chapter 6 is regarding different types of enterprises in Quebec. In your course, you cover only 4, okay? But there are a multitude. There are a lot more enterprises in Quebec which are not covered in this course. Now, part of the People versus Wise case was the notion of fiduciary duty. So it's duty of care. And with regards to duty of care, you need to take into consideration a few things. Number one, are you operating on the best interests of the legal person? Are you honest? Are you loyal? Are you diligent? And are you prudent? These are the most important elements of one's fiduciary duty. And fiduciary duty, you refer to Section 122 of the Canadian Business Corporations Act. I'll write it again. And with regards to this, in People versus Wise, you had Wise brothers buying the People stores, which was financially not doing well. And as a result, they bought it from a company, a British clothing company called Marks and Spencer. And they wanted to do whatever it took to save People's department stores. And in the end, it went on the verge of bankruptcy because of the decision they made to use one company, Peoples and Wise Brothers Inc. One of them was used for importations, and the other was used for exports. Yeah, so because of that decision, it was actually rendered bankrupt. Now, the real question the courts had to ask themselves is whose fault? It's not whether it's the Wise brothers' fault, right? Because they were on the board of directors of both companies. It's whether or not they owe a fiduciary duty to the creditors. And let's remember, creditors are also stakeholders in the corporation, right? And the Supreme Court concluded that they owe a duty, but it's not considered to be fiduciary duty. Once again, to the new people joining us, don't be shy, type in your question so I can answer it as quickly as I can. So another question, Eddie, what does it mean to have a distinct patrimony in a corporation? Well, that's a fantastic question. It again has to do with Chapter 6. And in Chapter 6, with the regards to a corporation, keep in mind, in a corporation, you have an abstract concept called legal personality. Keep in mind, according to Article 2 of the Civil Code, Section 1 of the Quebec Charter, everyone has a juridical personality, right? So with regards to corporations, they have what you call a legal personality. And a corporate veil exists to separate the difference. So you have, let's say, Mark. Mark has his own patrimony. Okay? And you also have the corporation. So we're going to call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Incorporated. It also has its own patrimony. And they are not the same. So say you have Mark who gets a loan on behalf of 1, 2, 3, 4 Incorporated. Well, does it affect the patrimony of Mark or does it affect the patrimony of the legal person? Keep in mind, anything that has incorporated at the end means it has a legal person or personality, right? Because the approval process has gone forward, okay? So it is not the same, and that is based on the notion of Article 309 of the Civil Code of Quebec. Now, it also has to do with the notion of 317 of the Civil Code of Quebec. But that's a story for another time. Once again, for those newcomers who are just joining us, don't be shy to type in your questions there so that I can answer any of your questions. So there's another 5 minutes left for the session. If you have any questions, now is the time. So Asian boy writes, hello, people are saying to study a lot for the final. However, it is open book. How much should I study? Well, it is open book, right? The only book you're allowed, though, is your course book. You're not allowed to bring in the Civil Code of Quebec or any other documentation with you. So do you need to study from the book? Yes. I gave two different sections of crash courses. Tonight, as I said, I'm giving a final mock exam session. Also, tomorrow we're doing a final consultation session to prep you for the final. Now, one of the things I did in law school, and I am happy to give that away to people, is the following. So this is what my book actually looks like. I have one post-it at the beginning of each chapter. I have another post-it at the beginning of each chapter's jurisprudence section. I have another colored post-it at the beginning of each chapter's law articles. So, for example, chapter 6 has two acts that are important to you, Civil Code of Quebec and the CBCA. I have a post-it of different colors for each. For chapter 7, you need one for the Civil Code articles where they begin so that it's quick reference for you during the exam, as well as the Labor Standards Act. So once you prepare like that, as well as know where everything is, you'll do better than expected. Now, keep in mind, one of the biggest mistakes I see even on my mock exams is that students start from the first question, or even in the first 15 minutes, 30 minutes, going in their books right away. Don't do that. Save the book during your review phase, because you have, as I've mentioned over there, 3 hours, and you have 60 multiple choices. Make sure you allot at least 15 minutes of review time for your multiple choice questions, so that whenever you do need to consult the book, that's when you'd actually consult the book and use it. Hello to the newcomers. Don't forget to ask your questions. We don't have much time left. So someone else messaged me directly. I don't know why. You can just type in your question right there. What is the proportion of questions based per chapter? Now, keep in mind, I'm not the one who writes the exam, right? But previously you have an equal amount. And for those who just forget about studying chapter 9, you're making a mistake. You will have multiple choice questions on chapter 9. And keep in mind, for chapter 9, that is the only chapter where it's not based on what the law says, with the exception of 2 articles. Let's not forget, chapter 9 has to do with the following 2 articles of the Civil Code of Quebec. Okay? Those are the only 2 chapters you need to know with regards to what the law says. Everything else, it's what's ethical, right? Ethical principles. So what type of questions can you expect in the multiple choices? Well, I tell my students the following. Expect 3 types of questions. First, you will get a direct question. So for example, which of these is true regarding patrimony of a legal person, for example, and then A, B, C, D, E. Then you will get a fictional case written for you, so you could read it, and then you have a few questions, if not several, based on that fictional case, sorry. And then the third type of question you will get are statement questions. So you will have 2 or 3 statements, and then the question is going to ask which of these is true, both the first just the first statement, the second statement, third statement, etc. I'm going to erase the board while people submit their questions. So remember, if you need to practice a final mock exam, we're having one tonight, 6 to 10 p.m. You just have to go on our website, asaptutoringmontreal.com, and you just register from there. Okay? Yeah, so AJ Jeanboy asks, any advice when it comes to short or essay questions? Well, there aren't any short questions. Let me just tell you this. There are two essay questions. One is legal, one is ethics. And during my crash course and mock exam session, I do teach you the law school rubric on how to answer those essay questions. But for short questions, there aren't any short answer questions. It's just multiple choice questions. And for multiple choice questions in law school, we're taught, because our mind is very selective during stressful times, to read each question at least twice before venturing on to the choices. So that's how I would approach the MCQs. So I have Sarah who's asking me a question. So the question is, how much of chapter 7 should you study for compared to chapter 6 and chapter 8? Well, keep in mind, these are all exam material. That's number one. Chapter 8 is a very different realm of law. And chapter 8 talks about civil liability. And that's, the application is very different. So you need 4 elements to be met, endowed with reason, fault, damages, and a causal link, right? If you're able to abide by that formula for any question that they ask you, it should simplify your life. For chapter 7, it's a different notion. Keep in mind, it's an introductory level because there are management classes that cover it in much greater detail, right? So those being MANA 366 and 479 for employment law. One of the main things to watch out for is that effective January of this year, the law has changed. So whatever your book says regarding, for example, psychological harassment, make sure you've made the corrections. If not, come see me at 1625 St. Catherine West. That's right next to the MB building, next to Burger King. I'm going to be here till 10 p.m. And I can make those corrections for you if you have any questions regarding psychological harassment, for example. But keep in mind, with paid vacation and psychological harassment, the law has changed in Quebec effective January of this year. So make sure you know that before trying to refer to the book, for example, right? Okay, I need 2 more questions. They will be the last questions before I log off. Keep in mind, tomorrow at the same time, I will be also holding the same webcam session. We start at 2:30 tomorrow. Okay, so I have another Eddie. I'm glad I'm not the only Eddie, by the way. Eddie is asking the following question. What do we mean by, what is the difference between parents and non-parents with regards to civil liability? Okay, so what Eddie is trying to ask is the following question. In Chapter 8, it's civil liability. So you have the absence of a contract, right? Another word for extra contractual liability is civil liability, civil responsibility due to negligence. The word negligence means irresponsibility. Now, you can sue people directly because someone assaulted another person. Such was the case in the Harris versus Ostromogolsky case. Or you can sue people indirectly if you can prove the formula that I mentioned before, like 5 minutes before, right? And with regards to parents and non-parents, everyone can be liable if they were, first of all, the non-parents if they were present, meaning they were responsible for providing adequate surveillance. And the parents don't have to be present. They just have to be the parents having legal tutorship over the child in question. Keep in mind, the age of majority in Quebec is 18, not 16, not 14, 18. So till the age of 18, you can sue the parents. From the age of 18 till onwards, they're no longer legal guardians of the child, so you cannot sue the parents. That is the exception. So was that clear regarding the difference between parents and non-parents? Okay, he just said yeah. You're welcome. Keep in mind, if you prefer showing up in person here too, it's doable. Today we have actually no one, but tomorrow we will be having a lot of people. So make sure you're here on time, first come, first serve, right? We have like 25 chairs available here. Okay, so who's gonna ask the final question before I log off? Keep in mind, those who are just logging in, we have a final mock exam session tonight starting at 6. It's at 1625 St. Catherine West, right next to the MB building and Burger King and Tim Hortons. So all you have to do is register online, asaptutoringmontreal.com. Okay, no more questions? Alrighty, so it's been my pleasure to provide this free Q&A session. Tune in tomorrow, 2:30 on Casa GMSB and on our Facebook page. We will be posting the live stream link, so you can just click it and show up over here and join me. Make sure you have more questions than today. I mean, because it is to your benefit, right? And don't forget, tonight we have a final mock exam session, 6 to 10 p.m. And tomorrow we have another final consultation session, 6 to 10 p.m. My name is Eddie Cara, and I'll see you tomorrow.